Influencer playbook and the full chair playbook are not the same thing. Most of you are doing exactly what you were told would work, and it actually isn't. Because what we're seeing and what actually happens are not the same thing. What can't be replaced, however, is what builds an irreplaceable business. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to share an important lesson that became clear to me running my own business. Growth isn't just about skill, it's about having the right system. I know exactly how hard it is to juggle clients, staff, and strategy all at once, which is why I love Gloss Genius. It's the all-in-one platform every salon owner needs to scale. It doesn't just help you manage your day-to-day like other options. Gloss Genius actually does the work for you that you need to grow. Whether it's rebooking that brings clients back or automating marketing campaigns that fill empty chairs, this platform never stops looking out for you. An added bonus is that it actually is easy to use. So no where do I click moments for you and your team. Clients don't have complicated logins just to book an appointment. It's smooth, it's a smart design, and it works. If you've been looking for a way to do all of that, go to the link in my show notes and use the code Successful to get 50% off your first 2 months of their Gold or Platinum plan to see for yourself. Gloss Genius is all about growth and less busy work. All right, let's get into the episode. If you've been posting your formulas, recreating trending content, and modeling what big hair influencers are doing, and your books still aren't where you want them to be, this episode is going to explain exactly why. Because the influencer playbook and the full chair playbook are not the same thing. And confusing the two is one of the most expensive mistakes I see stylists making right now. The most frustrating part, though, is that most of you are doing exactly what you were told would work, and it actually isn't. Welcome back to the Successful Stylist Academy podcast. If you're new here, my name is Ambrosia Carey, and I bring to you practical tips that you can bring to your salon to have a thriving business. First of all, I want to get into the influencer illusion. I want to talk about what exactly happens behind the scenes, because the numbers tell a very different story than the aesthetic, and I think this is where a lot of confusion actually starts, because what we're seeing and what actually happens are not the same thing. So here at SSA, we do both polls within our membership, which all of you are invited to be a part of. I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. And we also look this up. Like, we are really big into stats. We do a lot of research to make sure that what we're bringing to you is as accurate as possible. And this stat is kind of actually more alarming to me. And some of these other things were not as surprising, but hopefully by hearing this helps you make a better educated decision on how you want to frame the type of content you're going to be posting on social media and just kind of how you're comparing yourself. More than half of all content creators still earn under $15,000 a year, which I found actually kind of surprising. I thought it was going to be a little bit higher than that. And obviously we know that that's not a sustainable income. So that means that they have to be subsidizing their income with other things. So that's one funnel of income. And we'll talk about the output in just a moment. This part did surprise me, however. 10% of influencers make $100,000 or more annually. So that means 90%, 90. That means that they are not making that kind of income. So when we see somebody with 200, 300, 400,000 followers living what looks like an abundant life, statistically speaking, the odds are not in their favor. So I just want to have a little bit more of a clear lens when we are actually seeing something at face value. We can't fill in the blanks and assume that they are thriving or as successful, quote unquote, as, and I know that there are many different states of what success might mean, but when we're talking about income and sustainability as a business, that is not a sustainable formula. Creator participation in brand deals dropped from 94%, as a matter of fact, in 2024 to 78%. So that's almost a 20% drop in the current, year, which means that establishing influencers are losing brand deal access as the market gets more competitive and brands get more selective. And nearly half of all brands are now preferring commission-based partnerships over flat fees. So that means that influencers are increasingly getting paid only if something sells, not just by showing up. And that's where the benefit of working closely on the back end with several brands have helped me really get a good eye on this. Brands, after all, are a business. And if the budget is shrinking, then their risk tolerance does change. Something I don't really talk about as frequently is that I am a partner. I'm a shareholder in extension line called Rooted, and they're based in Canada. And for us, we are also a business and we are looking for like-minded people that we can partner with. And in our situation, we don't have a budget. As a matter of fact, we have not paid ourselves one penny. We do not pay ourselves at all as owners or founders of the actual business. All the money goes back into the company. And that's what builds a sustainable business. It's not sustainable long term, but we are doing it on purpose for a reason because we want to have that extra capital to be able to put into sustainable partnerships, to be able to purchase extra inventory if we want to expand our inventory, to offset anything that may come up tax season wise or any unexpected expenses that may show up for the business. So that way we can actually have a thriving business that can continue to sail on. And right now, we're looking for aligned partnerships with people who are already creating content. And those content creators are behind the chair, they are taking care of their clients. A small portion of them are educators and they're only creating educational content. And the reason why it works out so beneficially for the both of us is that they get their own discounted rate. That means that they get to purchase hair at a discounted rate. That means that they get to pass that cost over to the client. So they get to put a little bit more money in their pocket and they feel better about posting about it, all the while they're accruing points, and those points can go toward future hair. And ideally, they get to the point where they have enough points that they can actually start just getting free hair. And then when they charge for the hair, that's more money in their pocket as well. So that's what I mean by be mutually beneficial. Have we worked with people in the past where we would pay them to create UGC? Yes, we've also done that as well. And that is not uncommon. Like a lot of companies that I work with as a freelancer, as a matter of fact, that is one of their strategies. That if they only have, let's say, $5,000 per month to spend on their entire marketing budget, then for them, a little can go a long way when they're working with aligned partnerships. And what I mean by alignment, I'm talking specifically about a stylist who creates content, who is like-minded, that loves the brand, that would talk about the brand because they love the brand and they're not getting paid to talk about it. And there are those people too. And unfortunately, in those situations, the gap is starting to close, which that's the reason why the stats that I laid out to you just a second ago really make sense. Because those bigger influencers that are just doing the one-off, a lot of times, yes, they're getting eyeballs on it, but it's not actually converting. It's not turning into sales. And so that business is out that money. I think it's really easy to look on the front end of things when you're just looking at a brand and you're assuming that they have all this money coming in and you assume that they have large budgets. So there are a lot of hidden costs that we wouldn't see as a consumer. And I'm calling us, the hairstylist, a consumer because we are consuming those goods and we're talking about those goods online. But this is just something that I want to give you a different lens on how brands operate. And that's on a very small scale, right? I mean, every single brand's different. Every single brand partnership is different. Every single content creator is different. And hair influencer, there's even ambassadors. So everyone has like kind of a different role within this. But I think if I didn't know anything about this, I would just assume a lot of things. And I personally know hair influencers, people with large engaged following who are living paycheck to paycheck, not because they aren't talented, but because brand deals are super last minute. Their timelines change without warning. And the schedule you build your life around can collapse in literally one email. On the flip side, I've talked to hair influencers who also take clients behind the chair and they struggle with getting clients booking consistently because their following actually hurts them. There's an assumption when a client looks at a large following that they have their books closed, that they're not taking new clients, that they're extremely expensive. And that's not always the case. So when hair influencers with large followings tell me like, yeah, I'm struggling behind the chair, so I have to do these brand partnerships because I'm not making enough money to even pay my bills, that to me tells me that there's such a large misunderstanding and a huge gap between what we see and what's actually happening. And unfortunately, on social media, we just see the numbers. We just see the comments, we see the follows, we see the shares, and we assume that they are just crushing it and that they are doing really well financially. So there are hair influencers that create content full time and they don't actually do clients, as a matter of fact. but they're doing models. And the models get their hair done for free in exchange for videos, images, and it's not uncommon to choose a beauty influencer so that they can share with their audience as well, or even partner with another hair influencer to gain a higher reach, since that is the main metric that brands are wanting to see. Which makes sense. I mean, brands want to see first those metrics and they want to decide, like, okay, was that a high performing post? And if it was, then we'll put an ad behind it and hope that we actually generate income. If the second thing doesn't happen and they don't generate income, the likelihood that they will work with that influencer again is really low. The issue that I really want to highlight here, even though there were a lot of issues that just popped up here a second ago, is that stylists who are watching these influencers aren't just admiring them, they're copying their content strategy. And here's where the real damage happens. Your job is to get clients. Those are two completely different audiences with two completely different models. And the content that attracts one will not attract the other. The second thing I want to point out is what influencer content does versus what getting client content does. There's a question I want every stylist listening to ask. When a potential client lands on your Instagram page, what question are they actually trying to answer? The answer is not, wow, what formula do they use? The answer is, can I trust this person with my hair? And the crazy part about this is that 40% of millennials get their hair inspiration from Instagram, but inspiration and booking are not the same thing. Someone can be inspired by your work and still not book if they don't feel a connection to you. 63% of millennials searching for hair salons trust companies and brands that they can actually find online or that have an Instagram page. But notice what that stat is actually measuring. It's trust, it's not followers. The top influencer content quality that compels consumers to actually act is genuine reviews. And that is actually based on Sprout Social at 64%, meaning that authenticity is what moves people, not product value or technical skill display. So the irreplaceable business concept is that formulas can be Googled and transformations can be found on any account. What can't be replaced, however, is what builds an irreplaceable business. That's who you are as a human being behind that chair. Your communication style, your values, the way that you make someone feel seen. That is what keeps clients coming back for 15 plus years. That's what gets you referrals without asking. And none of that shows up in a formula post. So I want you to just take a moment, just pause this thought for a second. I want you to go look at your last 9 Instagram posts right now, or do it sometime tonight or tomorrow morning. Count how many formula posts, transformation posts, or recreations that you found on Instagram or TikTok and you decided to make for yourself. Then remove the view count, the follower count, all that stuff. Just count how many people actually may have booked with you through that post. And that will tell you a lot, right? That ratio is telling you exactly how your content might be performing. Because if your goal is to get more clients in your chair, then that's a metric that I want you to be looking for. And I think it's hard because it's like one of the easiest metrics for us to look at, and it's right there in our face. It's not just for us to see, but it's for other people to see as well. And that's where we can kind of get in our own heads is like, how many comments, how many interaction pieces did we get with that piece of content? But if you remove that metric and you don't worry about interaction pieces anymore, but you just worry about value that you're offering to your future client or your existing client and what leads to bookings or inquiries or DMs, then that is the metric that I really want you to be focusing on. And that's going to be hard for you to do because I know I'm speaking for myself even still. Like I'm not even trying to get new clients and I'm just trying to provide value and education to people in the industry. And even still, I am human. I can't help but look at, okay, this performed higher, this performed lower. Therefore, I should be creating more of this kind of content, even if the lower piece of content fueled me more. Like maybe it felt better for me. And sometimes I think it's important to do things like that for yourself, even if that means that you're sacrificing getting more followers. The third thing is the identity that you need to protect. And this is the part that nobody talks about when they tell you just post more. I'm using air quotes if you can't see me. And the psychological damage that goes with it is that you spend your days comparing yourself to someone who is performing success rather than building it. And the stats are actually here to protect that. 57% of Gen Z wants to become an influencer if given the opportunity. And that does not surprise me at all. But what it tells you is how deeply the influencer dream has been sold. And they're being told that a following equals a career. And that's just not the case. And I wish that I could just inject this in more people's belief system. And maybe if we just continue to have these conversations, people can be, seeing this by dismantling. And who knows, maybe AI is going to just continue to reverse the psychological cycle that we've all been like kind of stuck in. But the bigger problem with this I see is that the average hairstylist stays at their job for like 1 to 2 years. And according to the industry data, this is not something that I'm just making up. I want you to think about this. The career that costs tens of thousands of dollars in beauty school and licensing and the years of building clientele, that the average person is only doing 1 to 2 years per salon. And that's not a talent problem. That's just a mindset, a business foundation problem. The salon industry has a notoriously high turnover rate. This is according to Salon Spa Connection, where a survey data from over 10,000 salon professionals showing that stylists cycle through multiple salons searching for stability that often comes down to culture, leadership, and growth. And that's not about pay, right? So this is just telling us and further cementing the belief system that if you are at a certain place that you will have made it and that something magic will happen. And really what it comes down to is having a space where, and it says it here in the stat, culture, leadership, and growth. So if you have a good leader or a mentor that is able to help direct you and is able to help support you in your growth cycle and filling your chair and nurturing your business, that is what leads to not just long-term success, but overall happiness and stability. And here's the self-fulfilled prophecy. When you spend your time watching someone on TikTok who has the loudest voice but nothing real to offer, then you compare your beginning to the curated content that they're showing you. You start to believe that you're behind, that you're not good enough to post, that your work isn't worth sharing. And so you either don't post at all or you post the wrong things trying to imitate what that thing that looks like success. And your business never gets a chance to become what it could have been if you just show up as yourself consistently. So the antidote isn't to stop watching. It's just to get so clear on your value that your own clients, your own formula for success, that someone else's noise stops being relevant. And you have something that no influencer can take from you. Your relationship that you build with a client, the trust that you build. So here's what I would love for you to do. Just take a moment to write down 3 things about what works for you behind the chair that no influencer can replace. Your communication style, the way you handle a nervous client, the way you remember that your client's daughter just started college, that is your content. That's your brand. And the fourth and final piece of advice that I want to discuss is for the stylist who's listening and thinking, okay, but what if I actually do want to work with brands? What if this is a goal of mine? I'm not here to talk you out of it, by the way. I've done it and I do still do it. And there's absolutely a version of that that works. But I want to give you a full picture nobody personally gave me. And because the gap between what brands look like on Instagram and what it actually looks like on the ground is significantly different, I want to break this apart in a couple of different components. For instance, on travel, when a brand covers your flight, that sounds incredible, and it is, until you realize that the flight they book you on takes you through 2 connections and gets you there 6 hours later than a direct flight ever would. Your time slot is not a line item in their budget. So it's not that they don't value you. It's just that the economics of influencer partnership at most levels don't include premium travel. I have shown up to several events exhausted before I even walk into the door. And that time I'm not behind the chair. That's income I'm not making. That's energy I'm spending before the work even starts. Okay, so as far as accommodations go, hotel coverage sounds like a perk until you realize that you're rooming with another creator. And that is completely normal, especially when you get started out, especially at the micro or the mid tier level. Again, Not a complaint, just the reality. If you're going into brand work expecting a solo king suite, just recalibrate. On the schedule they hand you when you arrive is packed, and I mean packed. The stories, content creation, helping other team members create content, interviews, meetings, after show gatherings. You are working. This is not a free vacation. This is a job that doesn't actually come with a paycheck a lot of times. And some of them are paid, but just know that in the beginning, when you first get started, and even when it's not in the beginning, like you could be fully established, like I was when I started, and they're not always paid. Which segues into the payment portion of it, because I think sometimes people assume that you're just getting paid for these events. And the truth is that most brand events are unpaid. So, product, travel, and accommodations are considered your compensation. And getting paid in addition to those things requires a specific contract where you have a defined role for that brand. And those contracts are rarer than Instagram makes them appear. The stylists posting from brand trips are not getting checks typically, but some are getting product and a plane ticket, right? And there are some that do pay. So I'm not saying this as a blanketed statement, but I just want to help you recalibrate your expectations that most of the time when you're getting started with these brands, or if you're going as a guest influencer, or maybe you've got like a spotlight, or you get this as like a one-off gig, a lot of times they are not paid. And then there's the last minute reality. I have received invitations to events 1 week out. 1 week. Like, and if I said yes, I was going to have to move clients. And when you move clients last minute in this industry, especially more than once, some of them just don't come back. I've lost clients to brand trips. That's the real cost that never shows up in the highlight reel. Like, we just don't realize that that is something that can happen, and it does happen. And then the last part, onto the contracts. That part does sting a little bit. Even when you do have a contract, it's not the security that you think it is. Brands restructure constantly, and the head of marketing who loved you and fought for you internally leaves the company. And 3 months later, you get an email that says, "We're going in a different direction." I've had that happen before a contract term ends. Contracts in this space are more of an intention rather than a guarantee. And I have countless friends that I've talked to that are blindsided by it, especially when they're relying on this income as their livelihood. So here's how I would approach working with brands if I were to start over, or at least if I were advising a stylist who wanted to pursue it intentionally. Number one, be a yes person. The stylists who build lasting brand relationships are the ones who say yes to everything. They ask for nothing, they have no ego, and they give more than they take every single time. The ones who have the egos, yes, it does exist in this industry, it exists in all industries, as a matter of fact, but those people don't typically last as long. They're the ones who blow up and they are bright and they're like a Roman candle, and then they just kind of disappear. And I've seen this happen throughout my 27 years countless times. They just keep rolling over. But the part that I'm talking about, where you just kind of show up and you say yes and you deliver every single time. I did this consistently. I assisted backstage. I did speaking gigs. I sat on panels. I showed up early. I stayed late. I did it with zero demands and zero complaints. And that reputation, that track record of being easy, reliable, and generous is what opens doors that follower count alone never will. Brands want to work with people who make their lives easier, not harder. Number two, be selective about who you say yes to. Once you understand the real cost, the time, the clients you might lose, the energy you'll spend, you get more intentional about which opportunities are genuinely worth it. My filter became simple. It's a hell yes. It had to be a hell yes. If this was a show or a brand I'm genuinely excited about, do I have clients I need to move? And is it worth that disruption? If the answer to any of that was uncertain, the answer was no. Okay, number three, understand what you're building toward. Brand work at the early stage is a long game. You're building relationships, you're building a reputation, and you're also building a track record, not making this about just this one paycheck or two paychecks. The stylist who turns brand relationships into real income are the ones who treated the unpaid phase as an investment, not a transaction. So show up better than expected every single time. Be the person that they call first. Be the one they trust. That's how you eventually get to contracts, paid appearances, and ambassador roles. But it takes patience and it does take consistency. And then number 4, never let it cost you your chair. Your clients are your foundation. Everything else, the brand trips, the platform, the content, is built on top of that foundation. The moment brand works destabilizes your client base, you've lost the thing that makes you worth working in the first place. Protect your chair always. I'm not sharing any of this to discourage you. I'm sharing it because I wish someone had given me this picture earlier. The stylists who thrives in brand partnerships are the ones who went in with clear eyes, who understood what they were signing up for, who managed their expectations accordingly, and showed up with so much generosity and professionalism that brands had no choice but to keep calling them back. That's absolutely what I want for you. Just go in knowing that that's what you're actually walking into. So this week, I want you to try something a little different. I want you to post one piece of content that has nothing to do with a formula or a transformation. Post something that shows your clients and potential clients who you are as a person and who you are as a professional. One post, that's it. Just see what happens and see how it does. Does it lead to a DM? And I want to hear about it. You can DM us at Successful Stylist Academy, or you can even tag us in your post. And everything I talked about today, building a client getting content strategy, getting clear on your identity as a service provider, breaking the comparison cycle. This is exactly the work we do inside of SSA Lab. It's not a course you buy and forget. It's a membership community of stylists who are actively building real, sustainable businesses. If today's episode resonated and you're ready to stop guessing and start building with support around you, the link is in the show notes, and I'd love to have you there. Also, we have a free marketing guide that I'll drop in the show notes for you if that will help you with your business. It's a simple place to start if today's episode got you thinking. And if this episode helped you see things differently, the best thing you can do is share it with one stylist who you know and needs to hear it. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care. Today's episode is sponsored by Pharmagel, a clean and sustainable skincare line of over 35 years that commits to using safe and natural ingredients to deliver effective results. Visit pharmagel.net and use code SSA15 to earn 15% off your happier, healthier skin.